Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time, as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. Today I want to talk about a retro game that recently got remastered, and that is SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, which I absolutely adore. Now, I'm a big fan of the SpongeBob SquarePants TV show. I love the musical that they made that they put on Broadway. So I'm a big SpongeBob fan. And when I played Battle for Bikini Bottom on the GameCube forever ago, I absolutely fell in love with it. Not just because it's a SpongeBob video game per se, because there are plenty of SpongeBob games that are really, really bad. But this one and the Revenge of the Flying Dutchman on the GameCube were really fantastic games. But this one stood out the most of that era. Battle for Bikini Bottom was something really special. It was a very competent platformer with tons of collectibles to get, lots of great puzzles. It just really succeeded in a lot of ways, while also being true to this series in a whole lot of ways as well. So some of the things that really stand out to me for what makes it a great SpongeBob video game are some of the elements they incorporated into the gameplay itself. There are times where you'll be going like sledding down mountains, and if you're SpongeBob, he'll sled on his tongue. Sandy uses like a shell. You have like these little things that reference the show that are just really, really fantastic. You have multiple playable characters as well. SpongeBob has his own unique flair. You can, every time he moves, he has the classic like squeaking sound that he does when he moves around. He has special abilities like the bubble bowl, where he like rolls a bubble bowling ball and you can knock things over, flip switches and stuff. He makes a little like tiptoeing sound. There's tons of sound effects from the show littered throughout the entire the entire game. You can also play as Patrick. He's super strong, can lift things up, he can throw stuff. He doesn't jump nearly as well as SpongeBob does. He doesn't have some of the same abilities. Sandy, on the other hand, is very acrobatic, can like even use her lasso to glide through the air. It's fantastic being able to play as multiple characters from the franchise, but SpongeBob really shines for the most part. He is the most versatile. He has some of the most cool abilities. Later on in the game, you'll unlock the like bubble missile that you can control and use freely to take out enemies, and you utilize in boss fights as well. It's just really fantastic. And the way you unlock things, you unlock new worlds as you get golden spatulas. There are a smattering of them throughout each world, very similar to something like stars in Mario, and like Mario 64 or Mario Sunshine, Mario Galaxy, something like that. You get these golden spatulas as well. You also find Patrick's socks littered throughout the world. That's kind of like a side collectible that you can get. You'll need as many spatulas as you can to unlock the new worlds, which will in turn give you more things to explore, find more spatulas, and to go on and so forth until you get all the way to the end. And you'll fight bosses along the way. These boss fights, I think, are probably the weakest part of the game. They're fairly repetitious. You just have to figure out the pattern pretty quickly, rinse and repeat several times, and you can conquer the bosses. They're probably, again, the weakest part of the game, but they're very serviceable. They're pretty fun. They're usually robot versions of the characters that you play as, and they introduce some unique gimmick that you have to utilize, something that you've gotten throughout the world, one of the upgrades that you've gotten throughout the world. So I love what they do with this progressive power-up system and the way the worlds evolve as you get from world to world. The challenge grows harder each world, which is fantastic. And again, it pays homage to the show in really fantastic ways. And what's even better is that they actually have almost the entire original voice cast in this game. There are a couple that as soon as you hear them, you're like, okay, yeah, I can tell that this is not the original guy. But everyone else works out really, really well, and they do a great job with their voice lines. I'm really impressed with what they did. Now, the Rehydrated version, Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, which I got on the PlayStation 4, my wife actually got me the shiny edition, so I have a big SpongeBob statue somewhere. I really, really enjoyed. It's a faithful adaptation. It makes everything more colorful. It makes the textures more pop better, and it's just all in all a fantastic upgrade, except for in the speedrunning category. In the original game, there's a big speedrunning community because of a bunch of glitches that you can utilize to skip a lot of the game, but that they took out in the remastered version. So I think in that regard, that's probably the biggest whoops, that they actually took that out. But other than that, if you're not a speedrunner for this game, the Rehydrated version is definitely the definitive way to play this. Again, I'm a huge SpongeBob fan, so I loved going back and playing through this. It's not a huge time sink. I platinumed the game, did every single thing that you can do in this game in not a whole lot of time. It didn't take me a ton to actually get through. It's by far not perfect either. There are some times where mechanics just don't work. You'll be using the bubble bowling ball mechanic, and it doesn't connect the way you want it to. It hits a switch and it doesn't actually connect with it. There are some frustrating moments where stuff like that happens, or you'll be doing a platforming area and you'll land on the ground that you want to go on, but it'll actually be on the very edge and you'll slip off for some reason. Stuff like that absolutely happens. It's far from a perfect video game, but for the most part, it runs mechanically very well. And those frustrating aspects are actually circumvented by some of the things that you can do to abuse this kind of system. You have some times where you'll land on an edge, but you can keep jumping, like mash jump over and over to actually save yourself from falling off of a ledge. You can abuse like damage frames, getting the iframes. You can do all sorts of stuff to circumvent the game's mechanics, which I think is really fun. If you can abuse a game and take advantage of things where they didn't polish it exactly, I actually really like that, and I like taking advantage of stuff like that. Overall, this is a fantastic platformer. There is a lot to love about this game. I just really loved revisiting it. It was a fun time jumping back in and experiencing it just like I did back when I was a kid. I'm going to give SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated a gold rank. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.